course, your father is a well-known dissident, and I believe he's still on death row in Saudi Arabia.
MBS now is a pressure cooker. He once said to my father, he said, polities are ruled by fear, not love.
Do you worry about your own safety?
By alienating a lot of segments within the Saudi society, he's pushing a lot of people to be dissidents.
This week we have Abdullah Aloudh, son of the famous Imam and Shaykh Salman Aloudh, who talks to us about the new Saudi Arabia and its growing authoritarianism.
The Saudi Arabia still use the Pegasus software the Israelis have supplied them.
Governments and dictators say a shock therapy
Yeah.
to society in order to bring it to enlightenment. They are betting on power alone, not betting on the people.
I'm here with Abdullah Aloudh, a Saudi dissident here in Washington, D.C. Abdullah Aloudh, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome back to The Thinking Muslim.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be in person today.
Jazakallah khair. Well, I'm really, I think I'm very fortunate to be here with you in person here in Washington. The last conversation we had, I mean, who would have known, we received almost 500,000 views. And subhanAllah, it seemed like it gained a lot of traction amongst not just Saudis, but actually Muslims around the world. And did you believe at the time that, a conversation about, in effect, Saudi politics would have had such a reaction from all around the world?
Well, I know there was a hunger to understanding the Arab Peninsula and the people of the Arabian Peninsula.
Yeah.
But no, I did not did not know that this would be that level of interest of the people. But that's, to be honest, a very good sign that people are really, really happy and hungry to understanding the situation and follow the situation. And that's part of what we always talk about, which is the Ummah and the Muslim countries around the world, and how we all are well connected.
I used the word or the term Saudi dissident in introducing you, and of course you are the son of probably one of the most famous scholars who now is in prison in Saudi Arabia. Do you bristle at the term Saudi dissident, or do you embrace it?
I embrace it. I find it okay. For many reasons, but I'll be brief. One is that I think the problem with the Muslim dictatorships, with authoritarian regimes in the Arab world, is that they want to antagonize against the idea of having an opposition, antagonize and basically criminalize the idea of having a different thought, different opinion, which is against what Islamic, even history, against Islamic principles as I see it, and against the basic morals and understandings of human rights.
In our last show, in our last discussion, you commented on Saudi foreign policy, and in particular, its perspective on Palestine. The Saudis still see the Palestinian issue to be, at best, a bit of a nuisance, and they don't quite hold that level of solidarity towards the Palestinians that the people of Saudi Arabia do, and certainly the people of the Muslim Ummah do. But we have seen a stronger tone against Israel. We have seen the Doha attacks. The Saudis were very quick in responding and condemning those attacks. We've seen announcements about various actions in Gaza from the Saudis that have used quite harsh language against Israel. Do you think that this amounts to anything, a shift in perspective in any way, or is it still within that sort of slightly cynical, Saudi trying to play to public opinion, but actually not much more than that?
Yeah, that's what I think, the latter. And why? Because of things that preceded that.
Yeah.
Which is, one, for example, like Benjamin Netanyahu once said, there like Palestinians should go somewhere else, and he mentioned 3 places, including Saudi Arabia. And after that moment, Saudi Arabia issued like a really harsh statement and fierce language, as it should be. But this tells you that only when they mentioned places in Saudi Arabia, because they still think about the ultra nationalistic idea and understanding, and trying to separate this Saudis, and I think failing miserably to separate the Saudis from understanding the issues beyond their borders, and including the Palestinian issue. And when they got the message from the Israelis that they're no longer interested in normalization, and thirdly, I think the calculations in the Israeli mind that again, if they have to choose between the deterrence doctrine presenting strength, they think long term that can help them bring these small countries around to have them as protectorate, this time not by only the US, but also by Israel. That's what some people in the security, I would say, sector in Israel think, that presenting the strength of Israel can help even long-term normalization. While if you pursue this normalization, despite everything, the message that these countries will get is that, you have to do more concessions and all that, and they're not ready to do anything, and they're not willing to do any of that. So that's part of the calculations that the Saudi, they get the message and everything, and how the Israelis even treated them. So why would they pursue that? So the language is it's a language of somebody who basically was left to either do that and at least pretend to care, or still left out by everybody, including your own people who care about Gaza. I think so. What MBS chose, which is good at least, is to use a language that kind of respond to the moment.
Every winter, millions of families face the cold without the warmth of a home, a full meal, or proper clothing. For families living through conflict, poverty, or displacement, the winter season can be the most difficult time of the year. In Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, and beyond, children sleep under thin blankets, parents skip meals to feed their little ones, and schools struggle to stay open as temperatures drop. But together, we can change that. With Beit Mal's Winter Relief Campaign, your compassion provides families with food to stay nourished, blankets and warm clothing to stay safe, and fuel to bring warmth back into their homes. You help keep children in school, families together, and hope alive through the harshest months. Because when you give warmth, you're not just providing comfort, you're restoring dignity, preserving hope, and saving lives. Together we can make sure no family is left in the cold this winter. Give today and help turn their struggle into safety. Turn your compassion into hope.
MBS has also been engaged actively in regional diplomacy, and this actually also includes diplomacy with organizations that traditionally Saudi Arabia would not have engaged with, Islamist groups, and I'm particularly talking about how MBS has really worked with to bring Ahmed al-Sharaa out from the cold, and to create a normalization of the new Syria in the minds of the West. Of course, there was that famous meeting in between our conversations between Trump, where Trump said, he respected Sharaa as the strong man, and admired him. And of course, just yesterday, we're in Washington, but in New York, Ahmed al-Sharaa is at the United Nations. He gave a talk today, and yesterday he was at a very important forum with General Petraeus as the presenter, as the host. So there seems to be, and a lot of that, I think, happened as a result of the diplomacy of MBS. Like, what's going on there? Why is MBS, who was a very strong proponent of Assad at one point, and bringing Assad into out of the cold and back into the public and international sort of limelight, why is he so intent on salvaging the reputation of the new Syria?
Well, let's dissect that into understanding Saudi Arabia's relationship to Assad in the last year, before Assad's fall, and then now. And if you follow the events at that time, Saudi Arabia actually, just less than a year before the fall of the Assad regime, not just lobbied and pushed and forced Assad into the Arab Summit. He was welcomed, embraced in the arm of MBS. There was a famous, actually, picture portrayed of the two standing in Riyadh for the first time after years and years of isolation, basically normalizing Assad's regime and dictatorship. And it was a moment that Saudi Arabia wanted to even go beyond that, if it were not for the rebels who captured Damascus. But at the same time, we have to be fair. Yes, Saudi Arabia, if it were up to Saudi Arabia, they wanted less of Assad, because they wanted basically to break that, I would say, what they called the resistance crescent in the Arab world, like Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, and part of that. So they wanted to break it up, and they saw Syria as a central, I would say, piece into this puzzle, and they have always wanted to do that. And when this happened, they embraced it, because despite all the differences and all the reservations, this for them is a moment where they can and bet to embrace the Shara and pushed for him in the understanding, in the, I would say, hope that this will mean co-opting Shara's leadership and bringing it, in the arms of Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia become more influential in Syria's foreign policy. I think that's basically the calculations, and that's part of it. And I don't think they also didn't know or ignore the fact that he became from an Islamist background.
Yeah.
But what they are betting is that he will act as a politician more than an Islamist, and he will be more of a pragmatist, like MBS. MBS himself came from what once Khashoggi called the mother of the all Muslim, like Islamist movements, Wahhabism, at one time, and he is now MBS. So that's what they are hoping to push for and present.
Bienvenue sur The Thinking Muslim. C'est un plaisir de vous avoir parmi nous.
Merci de m'avoir invité à nouveau.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وأهلا بك في برنامج المسلم المفكر.
شكرا جزيلا ومرحبا بكم في लंदन. الحمد لله.
The Thinking Muslim में आपको दोबारा खुशामदीद कहते हैं. मैं आपका आज हमारे साथ होने पर शुक्रगुजार हूँ.
देखें, ये हमेशा बहुत खुशी की बात है, और सच कहूँ तो मुझे एक और थिंकिंग मुस्लिम कप लेने आना ही पड़ा, क्योंकि फातिमा जो मेरे साथ काम करती हैं, वो वाकई एक और कप चाहती हैं.
I've got some really exciting news for you. My guests and I now speak Urdu, Arabic and French, with the help of AI, of course. We aim to reach a larger audience and hope to dub our archive and new programs into these languages.
I need you to subscribe to these channels and help spread the word. If you want to help this project, please consider making a donation or becoming a member.
Now, looking at the domestic scene in Saudi Arabia, of course, your father is a well-known dissident, and he is currently in prison. We have seen reports of scholars being quietly released by the regime over the last few months. I mean, is this a promising sign, a recalibration maybe in Saudi Arabia? How do you interpret what's happening?
Well, it's good that you observe in that and you've seen the change in that. I think there are two, I would say, phenomena that I have to present here. One, yes, I have myself and we have at Middle East Democracy Center documented the releases of people. I've talked to people on the ground, talked to lawyers. And from what we gathered, there were at least like 5,000 political prisoners. We think that at least 1,000 of them, like 1/5, have been released, which is it's a good number. I think it's a good progress. And yes, some of them from the scholastic background, some of them were like, people who just tweeted things and silly stuff. But at the same time, there are 4,000 or a bit less left behind, including, of course, my father. By the way, one of the people who were released was actually not other than my uncle. Yeah, that I think mentioned in our last show. Yes, yeah. So he was released. I'm hoping next time we have the interview, I will talk about my father, who is inshallah free. So that's one phenomenon. The other one is the level of executions. So yes, I'm trying to be fair, talking about this progress, although we're hoping for a much bigger, approach toward releasing people and closing the whole file of arbitrary detention in Saudi Arabia. However, the other phenomenon is also not less fascinating, which is the level of executions that we're witnessing in the kingdom that is skyrocketing. Like, for example, this year alone so far, we have 240 people just until, like, this year, like from beginning of January until August. It's a record number in the history of the Arabian Peninsula. They just less than 3 months ago, executed Turki al-Jasir, who was a journalist, like Khashoggi, this time like in court, judicially instead of extrajudicial like they did to Khashoggi. It's just mind-boggling to see that they never given up on brutality. It's like, well, you're releasing people. Why you? That's just weird with how dictators think, and I think it just shows us that we should not always rely on the good intent or goodwill of these dictators. We should always keep the pressure going. We should always rely on us, keeping them on check until we remove them from power, of course, because that's, for me, the ultimate, But the thing is, yeah, he's executing the record number of people, including Abdullah Shemri. I want to mention Abdullah Shemri here because I know this guy personally. He was one of the analysts who, by the way, worked in Turkey, on Turkey. He was a Saudi diplomat in Turkey. He was given the presidential award by the Turkish leadership. He was a facilitator between the relationship between the two countries, and followed by thousands of people. There was a time when he actually talked about his relationship to MBS, how he translated things to the king during MBS's presence. He said that online. And then he was detained in 2021 and executed last year.
Because of?
They said high treason. It's just as broad as this. No mention of details. or story or nothing. It's just like it's obviously a made up story, like trumped up charges, like the charges that they made up for so many dissidents, activists, and not even activists, like people that they want to execute in the kingdom.
Why do you? I mean, you're here in Washington D.C. and you interact with policymakers on both the left and right. Why do you think that Saudi Arabia, in a sense, gets a free pass still when it comes to its domestic repression? I mean, it is the case that Saudi Arabia still has a very, of course, a very strong relationship. We know why that is the case, but also it's not given in the media, in the sort of general political circles. It's not given that level of anger, of criticism that you would find with like states that are authoritarian states, other authoritarian states that may exist in the region. Like, what is it about Saudi Arabia that still gives it that free pass?
So I think basically money and level of influence. I want to give you one example, like very recent example. Just today published commentary on the comedians who are going to Saudi Arabia beginning on Friday.
Western comedians.
Yes. Most of them actually American comedians, including people that I always like and always laugh at their jokes and stand-up comedy. Louis C.K., Russell Peters, what's his name, Iglesias, this guy,
I wouldn't know. I don't think Americans are so funny, so I don't.
I would say this is not biased by you, of course, but also include people like people from the UK, actually. Yeah. And it's just sad. One of them actually, Dylan, one of them mentioned in a podcast that he was offered 350,000 for just one show.
Wow.
And just to give you a glimpse of how big this is, like an average show like this in the US is like 35, 50, 60, 70 maximum if it's too good. But they were given 350. And he said in the show, I know people who were given even like millions, like $1 million or $1 million something over one show. The funny part about this, I don't know if this is a joke or not. And he was not kidding about it, to use Mahdi Hassan's, phrase.
Yes.
That he said he was going. He took it.
Really?
And he said, yeah. He said, I know. It's blood money. I don't care. He said, it's not because he said, not because I'm paraphrasing, of course. He said, not because I care less, but because he was offered a lot of money, and I'm more honest and straightforward than a lot of them who pretend to care and pretend to be principled and then do the same thing that I did.
Yeah.
So what we offered to them, what we asked them to do, and the Human Rights Watch also issued a report, I think yesterday or the day before, in which they asked these comedians to speak up. They said, okay, at least if you're going there, we know it's blood money, but at least speak up and say something about what you care about. So yeah, that's basically why they bend over backward to, I don't know if that's a phrase that you can use in this podcast, the Saudi leadership. And I want to say also a few things. It's one, an Orientalist understanding of Saudi Arabia and the Saudi people and the Arab people and Muslim people generally, that they are backward and only, quote unquote, an enlightened leadership that aligns with their understanding of what social reformer should look like, can bring them up to the standards of theirs. And this idea of benevolent autocracy, that an autocrat, a dictator who does what propagandists of these governments and dictators say, a shock therapy to society in order to bring it to enlightenment, to the age of enlightenment, to the modern society. Like if the problem is the people, actually. And that's what we have been, saying all along. That's why I'm a big believer in the people. And I think we should not play into the hands of these dictators by just, taking their narratives about our own people, like it's true.
Tell me about the Saudi people, because often the impression we get of Saudis is that they've taken this line, of the government, hook, line, and sinker. I mean, they are involved. They're going to the comedian shows. They're going to the entertainment shows. In a way, their senses have been dulled by the entertainment industry that has developed over the last few years. So the impression we get, maybe incorrectly from outside, we're falling into the same Orientalist trope. Maybe we get is that the Saudi people are in line with the government and would like to live in an ignorant bliss. I mean, you obviously grew up in the country. You tell us a little bit about the ordinary Saudi.
Absolutely. So one thing, there is a phenomenon that we used to call in Saudi Arabia, I'm trying to translate because it was, of course, said growing up in Arabic.
And my Arabic is so bad.
That we have the people who go to concerts and wants to go to these things and have fun. The religiosity of this scholar is above your head, but also you want to have fun. What once, I think, Ali Al-Wardi said, if like a lot of Muslims were left to choose between secularism and Islam, they would vote for Islam and go live in a secular society or something like that. It's the thing that they believe in. It's what they have faith in. Sometimes they have, practices that can be compatible or incompatible. But it is, I think, for me, even more dangerous to force things into society without allowing them to choose. That's one. And two, to basically try to manufacture this imposed, what they called liberal, practices. I don't think they are liberal practices, by the way, but let's, for the sake of argument, call them as such. Force it into society and impose it, while at the same time be very, very repressive politically, socially, and even religiously. This dynamic basically is the recipe for creating a society that is, by the way, still very conservative in nature, in theory, in understanding, but also feeling this paradox, feeling this dichotomy, feeling this problematic, internalized, I would say, problem, where sometimes they let it out through improper means. Basically, I would say if the Saudi, if you ask me, I would think that the majority of Saudi people do not like the government. But if you ask me why they look like they're happy, if I were there, I may go to a cinema movie. Would that mean that I'm less of a dissident? No, but because it was, allowed. So the issue is for a lot of these people is the calculations, the natural calculations that went into their head is revolting, could lead to a worse situation. So that's one. And two, revolting would need the ability to revolt. And that's, by the way, that's why it's even more dangerous because this repressive policy would lead to the people basically waiting on this, I would say, quote unquote, right moment. And then when it does revolt, it may lead to different things that we may not even like. So that's how it's bad, and that's why even regimes like them before, like the Bashar al-Assad or others, did is like a Sisi, and like they choose repression every time, even though they know it probably going to lead to the worst when they leave, because for them they're just protecting their era, and after that it could lead to hell. They could not care less. Ana awal jahim.
Maybe I should have asked you this question previously, but I want to know about, has MBS moved beyond this sort of ideological commitments he has, towards Israel, towards America, and to a more transactional phase in his statecraft? And, are we to see that the kingdom is genuinely looking to other partners, maybe Eastern partners? I'm thinking more China here as an example. I mean, back to that question about Pakistan, one of the analysts I read about that Pakistan defense pad is, of course, Pakistan is a very good route into Chinese defense architecture, right? So what's going, like, do you foresee that there is a maturing, at least, of relationships beyond the West when it comes to Saudi Arabia?
Well, we get that question a lot, and they call it the like pivot into the East or China or Russia moment. The Biden administration actually a lot used that line to say that's why we are embracing Saudi Arabia when we once called it a pariah state, and trying to when we said once we're going to treat it like the pariah it is, and then now we're embracing it. That's part of the narrative that they presented, and that's part of actually Biden's even piece that he published at the Washington Post at that time to justify his visit to Saudi Arabia. So now we look at this idea of pivot into China, Russia from the Saudi perspective. Is it genuine? Is it true? Is it a long-term thing? Is it a more profound understanding or approach toward this security dynamics in the region? I think it's not. I just want to quote the current ambassador to Turkey, an envoy to Syria, Tom Barrack, who, by the way, was once indicted as a UAE lobbyist here in Washington, which is funny. Anyway, so this guy, UAE guy, if we may say, was asked whether the U.S. is going to be an always ally to the West and others, and he literally said what a lot of people in the field say, that the U.S. has no permanent friends, but has permanent interests. So they are looking at Saudi Arabia as a treasure, as a oil refinery. But from the Saudi perspective, he was asked about this pivot into China, Russia. So he analyzed the Saudi perspective. He said, we know they say this a lot, meaning like the Saudis, the UAE and others say that a lot. We're going to China, Russia, if you didn't give us this or that, or security guarantees, or F-35 or other things. And then the pivot into China, Russia was actually, a thing that they always say. So he said, we know they are not genuine about it. We know they are not going to do it. We know they are just basically bluffing, if I may say. It's part of their maneuver in order to force the U.S. into giving them more, into allowing them to do more. And I think, to be honest, to some extent, some people in Washington here buy it, and a lot don't, including Tom Barrack, as he said. Now he said, we know they are not genuine; they're not going to do it, and it will take them not days or months or years, take them decades to just pivot probably one section of their security infrastructure to the east in order to make it function, let alone the whole, military infrastructure, for example. For Saudi Arabia, a military that was built wholly on the U.S. and the West, it's functionally almost impossible, at least in the next, I would say, 40 years, to quote-unquote pivot to China or Russia. This is not to say it's a right moment or like a wrong moment. It's just practically speaking. I was just talking to a Saudi Air Force officer, like an ex-Saudi Air Force officer, about this, and he literally said the following. He said, for just, maintaining an equipment, it would take a lot of money and a lot of caring from the original source, from U.S. People to fix things or maintain them, just in one one use of military equipment, let alone the whole infrastructure.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about Vision 2030. I mean, it in many ways is the source of Saudi legitimacy. But Vision 2030 is in some strain, at least, politically, economically, socially. It doesn't seem to have gained that level of traction that it was meant to. The NEOM project has been scaled back, and and the rest of it. So, is Vision 2030 now just redundant, or does it still have life?
So I think, first of all, I don't want to call it a legitimacy, because legitimacy, from what I understand, is a more profound ground for a state to be established and to be founded. And I think, I mean, if it's a source of legitimacy for the Saudi government, what are they going to do after 2030? MBS in 2016, he said, by 2020, we're going to be able to live in Saudi Arabia without oil. And look at us now, 2025. Saudi Arabia is not even more dependent on oil than today, in all levels. And the lack of cash, the lack of liquidity, the stock market in Saudi Arabia is in a record bad place right now. The cash for all these mega projects to take place and to be able to happen is lacking. And right now, the example that everybody gives right now is the line project, which was proposed to be 270 kilometers, and right now is like 3 kilometers. It's not even 1% of the original plan. So, you're right. There's what they called basically, I would say, a tamed expectation of what the project, if we are going to be also very generous with them. But at the same time, they did not give up the Vision 2030. They're still talking about it. They think it's an idea to bring everybody together, and it is basically master plan. And for him, in the beginning, I think he was trying to materialize something on the ground that can make him a hero. I think by now he realized this is not going to happen, and what can make him a hero is basically playing on the image, basically not making things happen on the ground, but on the online space in which he can promote as something happening, and also play on other things, including, by the way, what they call the pressure on the Palestinian state, because they know the Palestinian issue is very popular among the Saudis. We hear in the past few weeks that, Saudi Arabia is actually doing a lot to Palestine, to the degree that one of my funny friends called it, he said, MBS now is a pressure cooker. He's a pressure in all states around the world to do this. They talk about the pressure all the time. It's what's trending right now every day in Saudi Arabia. It's like, what they call the Dhagt al-Saudi, the Saudi pressure. Meaning, look, what the Saudi pressure made every country who recognized Palestine to do so. And therefore, they're trying to say, look, now we care for this issue. I hope this is the case. I'm not saying, by the way, this is not the right direction. But again, pretending to love and pretending to care is for me, good progress toward the right direction.
Wait. If you like this video, you're gonna love the Thinking Youth podcast, a new project by the Thinking Muslim, bringing young people, young Muslims around the world. We're talking Malaysia, Canada, Europe, and even the United States, where we get the best and brightest of young minds together to say, how can we elevate young Muslim thinking? How can we revive the ummah? How can we make this world better? We are so excited to bring you high quality guests in these next few months that you are gonna love. So we cannot wait for your comments, your feedback, and for you to join and subscribe to the Thinking Youth podcast. Thank you very much. Now back to the show.
We titled our last episode something in Gaza may bring down the Saudi state, and what you've described today of the Saudi people, the people of the country, there is this groundswell of opinion that's pro-Palestine, that hates what's happening in Gaza and feels for our brothers and sisters in Gaza. I'm just trying to marry, all of what you've said today with the idea that has MBS really lost grip on power? Because it seems to me from an outsider's perspective, and I don't follow it as close as you do, MBS has really got a very strong grip on power in Saudi Arabia, and there doesn't seem to be, at least internally, an organized movement. And of course, with all the caveats that it's very difficult to gauge,
Right.
but there doesn't seem to be an internal movement, or at least he's dealt with those pockets of disturbances, those challenges in Saudi Arabia. Talk to me about, is there really an avenue here, like Assad and like others? Is there an avenue here for this regime to fall?
Well, 2 quick points. I don't know. When I say quick points, I don't know if they're going to be quick, but I'm trying.
You're welcome.
So one is, if you ask the Syrians, and I have, by the way, one Syrian friend, I don't want to name because now he has a position in the Syrian government, asked him a few weeks, I swear to God, before the fall of the Assad. And I asked him, he said, we don't think this is going to happen. And he said, at the end, we're looking at the Assad that is going to be normalized in the, in the Arab world. And we're just trying to get as much as we can from the current moment. And then weeks later, why? Because the Assad regime had all the things against them, but they are betting on power alone, not betting on the people, not betting on the social structure, not betting on institutions, not betting on neighboring countries, not betting on, basically betting on the wrong things. And Khaldun once said, for polity to continue, you need a ground of what he called asabiyya. Right now we call it legitimacy or solidarity. That's why I think legitimacy is more profound than a plan or a vision. It's a ground where you have the people, where you let the people have faith not in you personally, but in the institutions, in the government, in the system of policy, in the system of understanding this relationship between the ruled and the ruler.
Yeah.
That's what even legitimacy in the eyes of the jurist historically, الشرعية, السياسة الشرعية, right? That's why they studied this. So again, going back to MBS, so this idea that he has a strong grip on power, I think it is superficial, not the, that he, like, I mean, it's superficial in the sense that he silenced everybody, but this is very dangerous, actually. It means just postponing the implosion, I think. Is that the right word?
Yes.
Here. Postponing the crisis and making people fearful. And he once said to my father, he said, I think polities are ruled by fear, not love. And I think he believes it. And he quotes Machiavelli. I don't know if rightly or wrongly. I always think wrongly, but regardless. The thing is, he thinks that fear alone can make people, go away. And I disagree. And that's why I am a dissident. I mean, the thing is, that's one factor alone. The other things is, I think by alienating a lot of segments within the Saudi society, he's pushing a lot of people to be dissidents that are not traditionally so. I mean, like royal families, like we have allies in the family itself. We have allies in different segments of Saudi society. We have allies are not traditional allies. Just today, I was talking to a former minister of state who was alienated, and he was just complaining and talking about these things and ideas, and he was thinking about even a lawsuit. So talking all these things leads to at the end, and I think eventually, the much you alienate them, the much you alienate people, the better chances to basically get at the end in trouble, I would say, to say the least. So that's why I'm not pessimistic, and that's why I think don't judge it from the face of it.
Yeah. Can I ask you about how we non-Saudis should view the kingdom? Because of course, everyone sees what the Saudis have been up to and doing, and we're very perturbed by their activity, especially normalization with Israel and their lack of action over Gaza. There has been a conversation. It hasn't had very much traction, but there is a conversation amongst Muslims that should we really be going to Umrah so often, for example, and how that feeds the Saudi economy, and should we really be, should we now think about Saudi Arabia as a country that should be on our boycott list, for example? I mean, what advice would you give to just your ordinary Muslim, who goes to Umrah, especially here from the West?
Right.
We can go to Umrah every year if we want to, and some people do go to Umrah. They're on their way to Dubai or somewhere, they go to Umrah. Dubai is another country they should probably boycott. How should we view Saudi Arabia? Untangle that dilemma for us, please.
Yeah, of course. So it's not easy even for me, although we have thought about that a lot, and we discussed it a lot with a lot of people and a lot of folks and a lot of colleagues of mine, including within the dissidents community. I think I leave it to the people and their assessment, especially those who never had Hajj. It's whether performing the ritual, and whether this is going to be a risk for them or not, and whether this is going to go into the hands and the benefit of the Saudi government directly or not. I think yes, at the end they are. I mean, the Saudi government are benefiting from how many people, but believe it or not, at the end I think we realized, and alhamdulillah, I was in this position that I invest more in not calling people not to go there, but rather to use it to talk to people, have conversation. Of course, be careful, but also document. And once you go back, you can talk, you can have a conversation, and it's like, for example, I remember during the Hajj, not last time, but Hajj before, a lot of the people who actually helped us document the, shuhada during the Hajj during the Hajj crisis were all these people and individuals. We kind of created like a crisis, I would say, team. And during that Hajj, actually, we documented about above 1,000 people died.
Stampede.
Yeah, exactly. And then at that time, the Saudi government came out and they said there was 0 incidents.
No way.
We called them out.
Really?
We talked to every agency that we know. We send them the numbers, we send them the names. We talked to everybody, including diplomats, like Jordanian diplomats, Egyptian diplomats, like Tunisian diplomats, and from around the world, and even Western diplomats who lost contact of their citizens. And then we connect them with agencies, and the French agency, and the AP and other agencies. And then when the Washington Post and other journals and newspapers started to publish about this, the Saudi government was freaking out. They hated us mostly for this. And then later that week, they actually admitted that 1,301 people had died during Hajj. Allah yarhamhum jami'an. And if it were not for these people, individuals, and who actually did a lot to help Hajij and protect them, and so this is just an example of what you can do other than just boycotting.
So let's talk about contemporary politics. What's happened, in recent months? Now, of course, we've had a series of events, in particular the horrific explosions or bombings in Doha of the Hamas leadership. And it just seems to me, and maybe again I'm overreading this, but it just seems to me that the past few months of Israel's bellicose behavior has Israel's actions maybe given the Saudi government pause for thought, because the original conversation we had 7 months ago now, you were pretty adamant that Saudi Arabia was on the pathway to normalization.
Right.
Do you think that these actions of Israel in the last few months has really woken up the Saudi establishment to the real intentions of the Zionist state?
That's a very good question. I think woken up is a very strong word. Very optimistic. I hope that was the case.
Yeah.
Practically, I think it's not, for the reasons that I'm going to say here. One, reading the pattern. When you understand politics of someone or some leadership, you want to detect the pattern. If you see the pattern of the Saudi leadership since MBS came to power, you will understand clearly that normalization was something that they were pursuing all along. Just a few days, I want to remind your listeners and viewers, a few days before the October 7th, MBS said, we are never been closer to normalization than today.
Yeah.
He said that on Fox News. And then even when the October 7th happened, I don't know if you remember this, but also it also approached the Israelis with an idea and a plan that they will stop even, for a short period of time, the bombardment of Gaza in return for the normalization, because he still wanted to normalize. However, what changed over time is that the Israelis became less interested in normalization, in a sense that the Saudis and the Saudi leadership was more interested in normalization than Israel itself. And this is not just according to me, according even to somebody like James Dorsey and others who were close to the understanding of the Israeli leadership. And so that's, I think, one important point in understanding what happened, what led to the current situation. So that Israel, even in the last few weeks, one of the Israeli newspaper, I forgot what it is, but it reported that Benjamin Netanyahu sent a message to MBS saying that they're no longer waiting for MBS to approach them with normalization, meaning like they're not even interested. They sent a message. It's like, oh, we are not even interested now in normalization. The Americans, and there are multiple reports saying that the Americans sent multiple messages and multiple, conversations. They had multiple conversations with Benjamin Netanyahu and all of the occupation leaders, saying that, well, if you want normalization with these Gulf countries or the remaining Gulf countries who hadn't normalized yet, you should, at least find a way to stop, doing that or have a different approach toward it, just to save face for these leaders to have a proper normalization with you. And he ignored all of these things and went ahead with all of, all of what happened, and we also. So I think that's number two. Number three, MBS and the Saudi government and authorities found themselves in this predicament where they want to pursue normalization, but normalization itself is not being pursued by the Israelis that you want to normalize with. So you can't be more monarchical than the monarchy itself and then the king himself. They found themselves to be really in an embarrassing situation where they are wanting something for Israel that Israel itself is not, pursuing the way that the Saudis did. And then the calculation that they went through in their head is that, well, if this is not happening and we wanted to at least look among our audience and among our population like we are caring and we care for the Palestinian issue, they pursued that. And yeah, I think an important understanding to all of this is to say, I'm a strong believer that the vast majority, and I think I've said that multiple times in many things before, the vast majority of the Saudi population still believes, understands, and supports the Palestinian issue in all hearts. Don't believe or be deceived by what you see online. It's all manufactured in small rooms in Riyadh by the Saudi government. It's what they wanted you to see, not what the Saudi population, do or think.
I mean, Abdullah, why do you think that the Israelis are no longer inclined towards normalization with Israel? Because at one point, that was seen to be, the crowning achievement of the deal of the century. What changed?
I think what changed is that the internal calculation of the Israeli government and Netanyahu, especially Netanyahu, is that there are two factors. One, the foreign policy or the embracement of the neighbors, and the other factor is the content of the population and what they want, like what they think their population and most of the Israelis, which is winning the war at all cost, at the humanitarian cost, at all disasters, at all ethnic cleansing, and all the catastrophes that we've seen. And he definitely chose the latter. You want to have a diplomatic relationship at the expense of the people. There was a time when they think they had to choose between, they can't have both.
So from what you've said, is normalization then off the agenda in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, for the foreseeable future, meaning in the next few months, no way.
Next few years?
Next few years, who knows? If things radically changed, for example, one of the things that the Saudis want to have before normalization is to have a point that they can sell to the people and to the Arab, region that they have done for Palestine in return for normalization. So if you see now, I think this will help you understand what the moves now about the Palestinian statehood and whether this is genuine or not. I think by now you understand what I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, in our previous conversation, we talked about the Americans, of course, but it was very clear to me that normalization, even though they talked as a fig leaf about a Palestinian state, in reality, there were greater national interest concerns, or at least MBS national interest concerns at stake. And the negotiation was directly a negotiation with the Americans. By extension of what you've said so far, it seems to me that if normalization seems to be off the table, the Americans are not that interested in engaging the Saudis on this rapprochement with supposedly public rapprochement with Israel. Is that fair to say?
I think it's very fair. I think there are 2 points, quick points here. One, very true. It was made clear or became clear to all these actors that normalization is no longer closely associated with the security guarantees that the Saudis want to have from the Americans. Yeah. That's one. Because with the Trump administration and all the pure transactional relationship, they basically approach this in a way that the Trump administration wants money, wants deals, wants all these billions from the Saudis, and I think they promised to give him, signed so many deals, so many contracts. It's now well known. So for the Saudi leadership and Mohammed bin Salman, well, if this was enough for them, then why would we, do that? So that's also part of the calculation. I think the second factor is that, again, the development in the region and Netanyahu realizing that if they want some kind of even safe face kind of concession, even that, he's not ready to do it. He's not, in the place to want to do it, and he chose not to. And the Saudis felt, well, no, I mean, why would we do it now? There is no interest. And the final factor in all of this also is, again, the Saudi people. I've noticed in the past, I would say, few weeks, the trend in hashtags on X, of course, pushed by the Saudi bots associated with the Saudi government, is that MBS is the new Salah ad-Din. I kid you not. Right. I'm not making this up. And by the way, I'm happy enough because they're lying about this, but I'm happy at least they're pretending to care, which is a bit of a progress from the past, complete abandonment of the issue is not when they even did not care to pretend, pretending to care. There is a famous song, قولي ولو كذبا كلاما ناعما حلوا, from Nizar Qabbani. It's like, say, even like when you are lying that you love me, I think that's what he's doing. He's of course he's lying, but at least he's pretending to love.
So can we then talk about the security guarantees? Because, of course, what is really interesting in this past week, actually, is the surprise Saudi-Pakistan defense pact. And, of course, this defense pact is being tallied, is being pushed as a NATO-style defense pact. And, of course, one of the key sticking points in the negotiations with the Americans was creating this security umbrella, a NATO-style security defense pact between Saudi Arabia and America. And as far as I know, that hasn't really moved forward.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued to understand, why did Saudi Arabia decide to sign this pact? Is it substantial in your eyes? And does it indicate that Saudi Arabia, again, has realized that at least that the Israelis are no longer, because, of course, it's time to come after the Doha attacks, and it seems to be, it seems to come after the series of unprecedented Israeli activities across the Middle East. So is it a sign that MBS has woken up to, and again, I know the word woken up is probably too firm, too strong here, but has realized that the Israelis cannot really be partners, security partners moving forward?
A great question. So, first of all, we have to understand the context and the history between the two countries. Growing up, I've always heard that in the Pakistani army there is, they said, brigade that was named after the two holy mosques and was devoted and dedicated to protect Saudi Arabia. That's what they said. Also, historically, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia had so many agreements, security agreements, military agreements. It has that long history. When MBS came to power and things became more transactional, he realized during the Yemen war, the beginning of Yemen war, that he would need Pakistan. So he think that he would buy them. So he, at that time, approached Imran Khan, and there was, if I remember correctly, a deal. I don't know how much was materialized, but a deal to defend Saudi Arabia and all that, and Saudi Arabia in return would pay such and such amount. However, Imran Khan did not want to also be directly involved with the Yemen war. Mohammed bin Salman was so much disappointed. There was a time when even people close to the circle of MBS said there was even screaming in the room between the two. There was a time when Imran was so left so angry. So this is part of the recent history also between the two. Yeah. Also, growing up, we have always heard that Saudi Arabia has or had a nuclear weapon in Pakistan, meaning at that time what they pretended or at least claimed is that Pakistan was kind of the surrogate, if I use the IVF language, the surrogate for the nuclear pregnancy, if I may say, for Saudi Arabia. And that was part for to defend Saudi Arabia, part of the agreements, all that history between the two countries. Yeah. MBS right now, after I would say the 2019 gig moment. The gig moment is when the oil refinery was hit by the Houthis. The Americans, even during Trump, did not want to get involved and basically left Saudi Arabia to its fate. MBS was so shocked. It was a turning point in Saudi security calculations. And MBS, this is when MBS started to think about either binding the US to an actual and real security agreement where they will defend him if things happen, or he will turn somewhere else. So that's when he started doing that. Now, with the security agreement falling down and not, being fulfilled, when the, Trump administration, not willing to go into war for any country, perhaps except Israel, MBS started to realize, well, even if they signed the security agreements with the Americans are the masters of loopholes. They will find a loophole in any security agreement. They will turn their back on you. They can do it like this. And so that's one. And two, now part of the calculation, well, like all what MBS thought about was like Iran is the enemy.
Yeah.
Now, if Israel was the one to bomb,
So that is the calculation.
Of course, I'm going to come to that. This is not going to help at all. Americans will definitely be on the side of Israel, not Saudi Arabia, if they have to choose. So this was like another, I would say, moment. Now this is the Doha moment, the gig moment and the Doha moment. Now, is this a good progress toward understanding the region? I think for me, it's a step in the right direction. I'm trying to be really, really careful. Now, you get this from a dissident. I'm trying to be fair. Yes, it's a step in the right direction, but also we have to be really, really careful not to, I would say, overestimate what this agreement means for both sides. One, let me ask you this. The NATO agreement is actually means it goes both sides, right? It should go both sides. Yes. Like, what would the Saudis offer to protect Pakistan? Because Pakistan has something to offer to protect Saudi Arabia, if they will. Is Saudi Arabia willing and able, for example, if Pakistan went to war with India, for example, this is not a far-fetched scenario. Would Saudi Arabia be part of the war and like interwar? Absolutely not. This is not thinkable. So this is just a simple scenario that shows you this is not going to happen. The NATO-style agreement between the two countries are more like in paper than an actual, change of, I would say, security dynamics in the region. It's part of, I think for me, it's part of MBS's maneuver to the West that I have other alternatives.
Right.
It's maneuver. It's like I'm not satisfied with whatever you have provided me so far, and even when you give me security guarantees, I have to make sure that this is going to happen. And perhaps also when the Doha moment happened, and I think despite all the problematic and all the catastrophe that this caused, it was a moment to at least help, I would say, kind of correct the compass of what could happen, and what and who where the problem could come from. You know what I mean? So all what basically occupied MBS's mind since he came to power is the nuclear weapon of Iran. And right now, what actually bombed the Gulf was not that nuclear state, but actually, Israel.
So has there been a recalibration of threat assessment here? I mean, is Saudi Arabia less harmed by or less perturbed by a nuclear-armed Iranian state, and possibly more perturbed by Israel?
I don't think it's to that point. I think they are in the moment that they are still they're still afraid, I think, of the Iranians more than the Israelis,
Right.
big time.
Yeah.
But I think they are a bit less paranoid. They're not as paranoid as they were once. Because in the past, they were paranoid about the Iranians to the degree that they didn't care about anybody else. And this kind of give them a scenario where an alternative could happen. So they're still paranoid about the Israelis, but I think about the Iranians, I mean. But I think also the Americans' involvement in the war striking Tehran, striking different cities, basically Syria going out of the calculation for allies of Iran, and Hezbollah also being hit, and all of that gave Saudi Arabia a bit of a moment to rethink that, well, they're not as strong as they thought, and even if they were, they are not now, and Israel became part of the scene. And I just want to also say this one last thing, which is the Israelis, they're not you do not have to analyze what the Israelis want to say and do. They say it themselves.
Yeah.
And they do it. Benjamin Netanyahu said it. He said, we're going to go after anybody who, is thought to be a threat to us anywhere, and anywhere, should be underlined. When they went after Hamas leaders in Doha, despite the, all the Americans, coordinations with the Qataris about this. I mean, for God's sake, Hamas position in Doha was in close coordination with the U.S. to be positioned there in order to facilitate negotiation. And despite all of that, and despite all the allies, despite all the, lavish spending during the Trump trip, despite all the, promises and everything, they did it nevertheless.
Abdullah, I'm fascinated by this term you use, the Doha moment. I mean, do you think it's a moment not just for Saudi Arabia, but a moment for all of the countries in the region? I just wonder whether, because I hear there's talk about expanding this agreement with Pakistan to Egypt, maybe even to Qatar, maybe even others in the region may want to join. I mean, how likely do you think that is?
I think it's possible, but also I don't want to overestimate it or think that it's going to do bigger than what could actually do, and at the same time, I think, there are actors in the region that started to think that Israel is not just threatening, they can act, they can operate. And I think with Israelis being isolated diplomatically, they are now more dangerous because they are not now even caring about pretending to be, to abide by any international law or anything. They never did, but, they are now even more so. And now with the Israelis going to Lebanon, Syria, bombarding Iran, places in Iraq, Doha, Yemen. I mean, who else? Like right now, we just mentioned like what, 7 countries in the region. Why you think other countries are, immune from being the next target?
Abdullah, as we wrap this conversation up, I mean, let me ask you a personal question. I mean, do you worry about your own safety when it comes to being a Saudi dissident? We know what happened horrifically to Jamal Khashoggi. We know that, I mean, I passed the street, of course, that's named after him by the Saudi embassy, of course, but we know that but the Saudi government remains, as you've just described today, extremely repressive. The Saudi Arabia still use the Pegasus software the Israelis have supplied. I mean, in trying to break into phones of these dissidents. Like, do you worry about your own safety, and you have concerns about that?
Well, look, I remember growing up once hearing a story from my father.
Yeah,
he said plague went to a town. And then when he went out of this town, like in the form of a human being, people saw him and they asked him, he's like, "Oh, you were the plague?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, you went out of this town?" He said, "Yes." They said, "But you killed 5,000 people." He said, "What? No, I only killed 500. So they said, "Then what the 4,500 remaining people were killed from?" He said, "From feeding the plague." And this analogy, I would say the plague here is dictatorship and tyranny. For me, I would never die from, we only die once, as they say. I will never die from, I will try, inshallah, not to die from feeding all this repressive policies. And I think they part of what they engineer in policy, these dictator, minds, is to make you fear them to the degree that cripple you from doing the right thing, from exposing the wrong policies, from calling out violations, from documenting, repressive policies. And I think I choose not to fear because it's a choice. The Prophet ﷺ said to a man, "La taghdab." So people later said, how you asking somebody not to have a certain feeling it's a message that you can control your own feelings. You can have a feeling or not. You can have anger or not, and you can have fear or not. So inshallah, I choose not to have fear.
Inshallah. And finally, your father, Shaykh Salman Alaoudh, he's in prison. He remains languishing in prison. I believe he's still on death row in Saudi Arabia. Just tell us a little bit about his detention, his treatment, and what are any updates on his condition?
Actually, this month marked the 8th year since his imprisonment. He's still in solitary confinement. Was mistreated.
Just for a tweet.
For a tweet. But again, it's a tweet. That was I think the I would say the trigger. But also it was a longer relationship and fear of this discourse of independent scholars, Muslim scholars in Saudi Arabia. And 8 years later now, he's still in the same position. Yes, there are people who were released. We asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fasten his release and to make it quick. But I mean, at the end, just keep him in your prayers and thoughts, and inshallah, this will happen.
Inshallah. Abdullah Aloudh, it's really been a fascinating conversation, and I really, the phrase you used, the Doha moment, I think is a phrase that needs to catch on, because I suspect This has been a wake-up call. I know the term wake-up is still debatable, but it's been a wake-up call for everyone. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Assalamu alaikum. Now you've reached the end of this show, and the fact that you've stayed until the very end tells me that you truly believe in our work. Please consider making a one-off donation or becoming a member by visiting thinkingmuslim.com/membership. Now your contributions give you exclusive behind-the-scenes access and the ability to ask questions to our guests, and monthly calls with myself, my team, and our guests like Sami Hamdi. Jazakallah khair, and keep us in your du'as.